Chapter 9. After glimpsing a challenging future, tonight Emma and Cory faced their greatest test yet, a temporal storm threatening to tear apart the Christmas Express. With Pixie's guidance, they must find the strength within themselves to save the train's magic. As the Christmas Express whispered along its enchanted rails, a gossamer mist shimmering like stardust began to cocoon Cory and Emma again. The familiar warmth of magic tingled against their skin, a comforting prelude to the unknown adventure ahead. When the ethereal veil lifted, they found themselves thrust into a world starkly different from their previous experiences. Gone were the images of the cozy farmhouse kitchen and the suffragettes' bustling office. In their place stood a makeshift field hospital, a haven of healing amidst the chaos of war. The air hung heavy with the sharp tang of antiseptic, mingling with the metallic scent of fear. Distant explosions rumbled like ominous thunder, their vibrations thrumming through the ground beneath the children's feet. Cory and Emma exchanged wide-eyed glances, their hearts pounding a staccato rhythm of excitement and trepidation. The magic of their journey seemed to pulse around them, a protective bubble in this harsh reality. "Quick, grab some bandages," a voice called out, startling them from their wonder. They turned to see a young woman in a mud-stained nurse's uniform, her hair tucked neatly under a cap adorned with a red cross. As she approached, fatigue etched in the lines around her eyes. Surprise bloomed across her face. "Oh, you're not—" "I'm sorry. Force of habit. I'm Hannah Mitchell. Welcome to our little corner of the war." Emma stepped forward, her voice filled with awe and a touch of nervousness. Are we in World War II? Hannah nodded, a weary smile softening her features. December 1944, to be exact. We're in Belgium, right in the middle of what they'll later call the Battle of the Bulge. She paused, her gaze traveling over their modern clothes with curiosity rather than suspicion. "But you two aren't from around here, are you?" Cory shook his head, feeling the weight of their extraordinary circumstances. "No, ma'am, well, it's hard to explain, but we're on a sort of magical journey." To their surprise, Hannah didn't seem shocked by this information. Instead, she chuckled softly, the sound like a warm breeze in the clinical chill of the hospital. "Well, after everything I've seen in this war, a little magic doesn't seem too far-fetched. Come on, let me show you around. Just try not to touch anything, okay?" As Hannah led them through the field hospital, Cory and Emma were struck by the organized chaos around them. The magic of their journey seemed to shimmer at the edges of this all-too-real world, reminding them of their unique position as observers. Doctors and nurses moved with purposeful urgency, their hands steady despite the exhaustion evident in their eyes. Rows of cots held wounded soldiers, some sleeping fitfully, others awake and in visible pain. The siblings felt their hearts constrict at the sight, the reality of war more palpable than any history book could convey. "It's been a tough few days," Hannah explained as they walked, her voice low and tinged with a mixture of exhaustion and determination. "The cold is bitter, supplies are running low, and the wounded just keep coming. but we do what we can." Emma's heart ached at the sight of so much suffering, her earlier excitement replaced by a deep empathy. "How do you do it?" she asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "How do you keep going in the face of all this?" Anna's eyes, though weary, softened with compassion as she met Emma's gaze. "It's not easy, sweetie," she said, her voice gentle yet filled with steely determination. "But every life we save, every soldier we patch up and send home, it's like kindling a tiny flame of hope in this dark world. That's what makes it all worthwhile. We're not just saving individuals here. We're saving futures, dreams, entire families waiting back home." As they reached a quieter corner of the hospital, a pocket of calm in the storm of activity, Anna's expression grew more serious. The air around them seemed to thicken with anticipation, as if the very walls were leaning in to listen. "Listen," Hannah began, her voice taking on a storyteller's cadence. "I don't know how much you know about what's happening here, but I have a feeling you're here to learn something. So let me tell you about Christmas 1944 on the front lines." Anna's voice trailed off as the scene around them began to shift, the magic of the Christmas Express weaving its spell once more. The stark reality of the field hospital blurred and reformed, transforming Cory and Emma back in time to Christmas Eve, 1944. The siblings huddled closer together, their eyes wide with wonder and a touch of apprehension, ready to experience a side of war and heroism they had never imagined. As the scene solidified around them, Cory and Emma felt the weight of history settling on their shoulders. They were no longer just observers, but witnesses to a pivotal moment in time. The magic of their journey had brought them here for a reason, and they were determined to understand the lessons of courage, compassion, and hope that awaited them in this unlikely Christmas tale. The world around them shimmered like heat waves, dissolving and reforming until Cory and Emma found themselves standing in the heart of another bustling field hospital on Christmas Eve, 1944. The air hung heavy with tension, laced with the sharp bite of antiseptic and the metallic tang of fear. The distant rumble of artillery pulsed through the ground, a constant, ominous heartbeat of war. Hannah's voice, warm yet tinged with urgency, guided them through the chaos. Christmas Eve, and the wounded just keep coming. Frostbite, bullet wounds, shell shock, you name it, we're seeing it. But even here, magic finds a way to bloom. As if summoned by her words, a group of medics burst through the door, carrying a soldier on a stretcher. His uniform was torn and bloody, his face as pale as the winter moon beneath a layer of mud and grime. The sight sent a shiver down Emma's spine, the reality of war suddenly more tangible than any history book could convey. "Quick!" Hannah called out, her ghostly form moving alongside her past self, leaving a trail of shimmering stardust in her wake. "Get him to Tent B. Possible internal bleeding." Cory and Emma followed, their hearts pounding a rhythm of fascination and horror. The flurry of activity swirled around them like a tempest, each shout and clatter telling a story of urgency and hope. They watched, spellbound, as Hannah and her fellow nurses worked tirelessly, their hands steady as mountain streams, despite the exhaustion etched in the lines around their eyes. "It's not just about patching them up," Hannah explained, her voice softening. "It's about giving them hope, reminding them what they're fighting for. Sometimes the smallest kindness can spark the brightest light in the darkest places." As if to illustrate her point, a soft sound began to rise above the din of the hospital, like the first bird song after a storm. Emma cocked her head, listening intently, her eyes widening in wonder. "Is that singing?" Hannah smiled, nodding towards a corner of the tent where a group of soldiers, some bandaged and others supporting their comrade, had begun to sing Silent Night in a tapestry of accents. The melody wove through the air, a thread of gold in the grim fabric of war. "Even here, in the darkest moments, we find light," Hannah said softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. These men, from different states, different backgrounds, all coming together to stop the fighting, if only just for a moment. It's moments like these that keep us going, that remind us of the magic of human connection. The scene shifted again, the world blurring and reforming like a painting touched by an invisible hand. Cory and Emma found themselves in a small makeshift office, where Hannah hunched over a desk, scribbling furiously on a pad of paper. The lamplight cast a warm glow over her determined features, turning the ordinary into something almost magical. "This is where some of our most important work happens," she explained, her voice thrumming with enthusiasm. "We're constantly innovating, finding new ways to save lives with limited resources. It's like being an alchemist, turning the mundane into the miraculous." Cory leaned in, fascinated by the diagrams and notes that danced across the page. "What's this?" he asked, pointing to a sketch of what looked like a bottle attached to a tube, his curiosity sparking like a flame in his eyes. "That's a new plasma transfusion system we're working on," Hannah replied, her eyes lighting up with a passion that seemed to push back the shadows of war. "It's going to save countless lives, not just here, but in hospitals back home, too. Sometimes the greatest magic comes from science and compassion working hand in hand." As they watched, Hannah's past self was interrupted by a young soldier bursting into the office, his face flushed with urgency. "Nurse Mitchell, we need you in Tent C. Stat!" The scene blurred once more as they followed Hannah, rushing through the hospital, her feet barely seeming to touch the ground. They arrived at a bed where a young man lay, his chest heaving with labored breath, each gasp a battle against the unseen enemy of illness. "Pneumonia," Hannah muttered, her hands moving swiftly to check his vitals, a dance of skill and intuition. "We're seeing so much of it with this cold, but where there's life, there's hope." Emma and Cory watched in awe as Hannah worked, her movements precise and her voice soothing as she spoke to the frightened soldier. It was as if she were weaving a spell, her words and actions a form of magic all their own. Slowly, miraculously, the soldier's breathing eased, and color began to return to his cheeks like the first blush of dawn. "You saved him," Emma whispered, her voice filled with a mixture of admiration and wonder. Hannah nodded, a kaleidoscope of emotions swirling in her eyes: pride, sadness, determination. We save many, but we lose many too. That's the reality of war. Yet we keep fighting, keep hoping, because every life saved is a victory against darkness. As the scene began to fade back to the present, the edges of reality softening like a dream upon waking, Hannah turned to the siblings. Her expression was serious, yet touched with a gentle light. I died on December 28th, 1944. An enemy shell hit our hospital. My last act was shielding a young soldier with my own body. Cory and Emma stood in stunned silence, the weight of Hannah's sacrifice settling over them like a heavy yet somehow comforting blanket. They felt the true meaning of heroism and selflessness seeping into their hearts, a lesson more powerful than any textbook could impart. But don't be sad for me, Hannah continued, a gentle smile gracing her features, her form beginning to shimmer with an otherworldly light. I died doing what I believed in, saving lives, bringing hope in the darkest of times. That's the true magic of the human spirit. As the magical train car materialized around them once more, its warm glow a stark contrast to the harsh realities they had witnessed, Anna's form began to fade slowly, like a mist evaporating. But her voice lingered, carrying one last message that seemed to echo not just in the air, but in the very fabric of time itself. Remember, in times of crisis, every act of kindness, no matter how small, can make a difference. That's the true spirit of Christmas and of humanity. It's the magic that lives in all of us, waiting to be awakened. With those words, Hannah disappeared, leaving Cory and Emma alone in the gently swaying train car. The siblings sat in thoughtful silence, their minds whirling with all they had witnessed and learned. The lesson of Hannah's courage and compassion had touched them deeply, kindling a warm glow in their hearts that seemed to push back the winter chill. As the Christmas Express continued its magical journey through time, Cory and Emma realized they would carry Hannah's story with them always. They had glimpsed the true magic of the human spirit, a magic more powerful than any they had encountered on their extraordinary adventure. The storm may have passed, but challenges remain. Tomorrow, we meet a ghost whose story hits closer to home. Check out all of the other books in the Magical Papillon series of cozy mysteries on Amazon now.